Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sporting Directions, proudly sponsored by Tsunami Teamwear. With me, Tavis Roberts.
And me, Gavin Taylor. Hello, everyone.
Hello. And for those of you new to the shows, the Sports Directions podcast is aimed at providing some ideas and guidance for those of you wanting to pursue a career in the world of sport. Over the course of this first series, we'll be interviewing a range of professionals from different areas of sport to share some of their amazing stories. We'll be having them share with us some of their achievements, their struggles, and their advice that they may have for you wanting to also pursue a career in sport. Today, we are very happy to welcome Josh Ives, who is currently the Director of Rugby at Repton, Dubai, and is an ex-international rugby player. So, welcome, Josh. Let's begin with what was a strong memory that led you in the direction of pursuing a career in sport?
Well, first of all, thanks guys for having me on. I think for me, Simon's already alluded to that my story is maybe a little bit more unique and straight from the start. There's no real memory of the reason this path that I took. I think I was always, from the get-go, I had in my head, I was very strong-minded that I was going to be a professional rugby player, and that was the route that I was going to take, and that didn't happen. And then from there, sort of went in the direction of sort of the family business in the restaurant game. So I honestly don't have a memory as to why I wanted to go this route. And that's kind of, I think, as we delve deeper into this little chat, I think, you'll see sort of, where my passions lie on really having the information that this is a route that's possible for me.
Yeah, Josh, can we dip into that a little bit? Because I think all of us at some point in our lives wanted to be a professional athlete at some point. So obviously, we know that you represented rugby to a high standard, but can you just talk me through then, you said yourself you were quite strong-minded and you had in your mind, I'm going to be a professional rugby player. Talk me through, if you don't mind sharing, and I hope it doesn't bring you too much sort of pain and misery back on that day, but can you share with us a story, the day that you found out, the day where someone said to you, or the day that you realised in your head, do you know what, I'm not going to be a professional player? And the reason why I want to know that story is that obviously started you off on your journey of what to do next. So I just kind of love to know how it felt on that day. How did you find out? How did you then start moving forward into what you're going to do next?
That's something I've not thought about for a long time. But no, certainly still remember it. I was at my friend's house in Yaxham in Norfolk. And I was waiting on a phone call for about a couple of days, actually, and then eventually got the phone call whether we were getting contracts or not, or whether I was getting a contract with the Northampton Saints. Rob Hunter was the man. I think Rob's he's at Ext with the academy set up. And there and then, he's a good guy. Like, I don't hold anything against those guys. You've got to make those decisions. And, I think ultimately, when I think back on it now, did I know I wasn't going to get a contract? I think I probably did. I think I didn't spend enough time on my primary roles as the position that I was in. I didn't spend enough time honing my skills. And I think looking back on it now, I definitely didn't. And then that's something now that, I really, really am passionate about with individuals and working on, primary skill sets to put them in good positions. But yeah, Rob Hunter, Norfolk in Yaxham. It was a good conversation, well, good and a bad conversation. And yeah, just said, you're not what we're after, sort of thing. He gave it to me straight, which is good. And I respect that. And then that was it. The sporting dream died there and then. So there was no, and that's what I mean from what I said earlier. I wasn't aware that there were other routes. I didn't, no one had a conversation about, coaching options, coaching possibilities, coaching opportunities, and all this. It was just, you're either a professional rugby player, professional sportsman, or that's it. And that's where it really died. And then it was, what do I do next? I took a little bit of a gap year, went up to Australia, where I sort of tried to figure out what I wanted to do, didn't figure out what I wanted to do, came back a year later and fell into restaurants, which is what mum and dad always did.
I mean, what's great about that story is that you're one of the reasons why we set this podcast up, because there's thousands of stories like people like yourself who were on the cusp of making it as a professional, Obviously, you're very talented in your skill set, but we all know that getting into professional sport, regardless of the sport of choice, is extremely difficult. And I hope that doesn't offend you in any way in terms of, you know, how good you still were, but the fact that you didn't quite get there, but you were super close. And then the reason why we're setting up this podcast is because of exactly that. You said yourself, what else is out there? And there wasn't enough stories or you know, routes where you could read or listen to where people are going, these are some of the routes that you can go. So what's really interesting then is that you obviously took some time away. You then went a different path, but then obviously you pursued a career into coaching. So I'm kind of curious to know who was a coach or a person that inspired you to go into coaching? Is it somebody from your experiences as a player? Is it somebody from your experiences outside of sport? Who inspired you to turn into be a coach?
I think I'll join two dots together, and I wouldn't say, looking back on it now, you know, sort of 10 years into the industry, I can see where those two moments join and how important those individuals were in my life. One is a bloke called Richard Palmer, who's sadly not with us anymore. He was my first coach at Swaffham Rugby Club, and I did not want to go to rugby training, that was for sure. On a Sunday morning, I was that little big kid that I just want to stay at home and eat chocolate and eat crisps. And that man, he would come around my house and he'd drag me out of bed and he would take me to rugby training. He's like, nah, you're coming with me. Mum and dad would be like, look, if Richard says you're going, you're going. And he'd drive me to rugby. And he did this for about 3 years. And I just stuck at it. I think I was mainly there for the sausage rolls after training. But I mean, to go, I've got no idea what that man saw in me. But for him to go into my house and drag me out of bed, this 7, 8, 9-year-old. I mean, I've never met a coach like that. And he, was his knowledge of rugby brilliant? No, but man, he was passionate, and the drive that he had to help all the kids and all the girls in that Swaffham under-8s team was massive. And when I look back on that now, I see that in my coaching and the way I want to be a coach. At 18 and 19. I didn't know that. Then jump forward to 2014 when I moved to Dubai with the wife. Again, still didn't realise coaching was an option or was a valid career path. 4 weeks into Dubai, I met a bloke called Paulo Perolini, who's a great man, played at the highest level, got out alive, and then retired to Dubai and ended up becoming a director of sport at the school. And then started his own rugby skills academy out here. And we met each other after a game, and he was just like, do you know what? I like the way you play, and you've got a nice manner about you. He was like, come along and come and coach at my academy. And I was like, look, I've got no coaching experience. And he was like, yeah, but you're a good guy and you're young, and I need a little bit of pocket money as well. I hadn't got a job yet. Straight from there, meeting that man, doing my first week. So what was it? Week 4 in Dubai. I did a full week's coaching. So coached Monday to Friday, every night. And after that first week, I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. There and then, after a week, I was like, this is what I want to do, and I loved it. And I did not realize that was an option. And as simple as that. So those are the questions that I ask now that I'm frustrated that it's taken me to 2014 to find this wonderful opportunity. Like, why wasn't this open? Why wasn't this information open to me when I was 18 and leaving school? And that's kind of where my two dots join.
That's a really nice story, Rick. And thank you for sharing us about how you were inspired by your late former coach, Mr. Richard. Going back, it's interesting to recognize that you don't have to be a great player to be a great coach. Okay. And I'm guessing that's something that you would agree with now as well. So what qualities do make a great coach in your eyes? Yeah,
I mean, it's straight from the off that you can't, not all great players are great coaches, fact, but there are a few, and when they go away and they work on that craft, it certainly come. I've seen a few come and go in Dubai now. But for me, looking back to to day dot of where my rugby journey began was Richard Palmer. And, for me, that's the ultimate coach, just being so passionate and driven to help individuals, and whether they're adults or whether they're kids, you give them 100%. And I think there's no teaching that. You either want to do it or you don't want to do it. You can't, it's not something you can learn. When you step on that field as a coach, you're either going to give them 100% or you're not. And I think that's true. I don't think you can learn to give 100%. It's hard, it's difficult to go those extra miles. But if you really, really want to do it and you believe in it, it just comes natural. And for me, that's it. Obviously, you need the knowledge, you need the skill set. But I think ultimately to be a success story, and to last in the industry, passion has to be at the forefront.
It sounds like you've really put some time into learning your craft and becoming a better coach, okay? And you've mentioned giving 100%, and that you need to be able to have this sort of work ethic to be able to become a success in the coaching field. What would be one of your successes? Like, what sort of springs to mind of how you made an impact of a coach on someone else's life, maybe, or on your own?
A specific
Not so
story.
specific, just maybe something that you feel is something that you accomplished because of your sort of progress of learning your coaching craft.
I think for me, like a good example of that would be, and it's not necessarily, again, it's another route that this industry can take you down. And this was maybe sort of 5-6 years into the coaching journey, and a big hole in the market out, I think, across the globe when it comes to minis and youth rugby in particular, or minis and youth sport, are those mums and dads that volunteer every Sunday morning. They're given a bag of balls and a stack of cones, and it's like, go deal with these 8-year-olds and these 5-year-olds, and they're like, yeah, all right. And they do it, and geez, they do it well, and they give it everything. But there's not a lot of support for them. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is developing a coaches program within the club that I was at. Taking time out on a Sunday morning, and then again, it's them taking their time out. These individuals are, geez, I mean, some of them own companies, they're millionaires, but they're still so passionate about their kids and wanting to get better, that they're prepared to wake up on a Sunday morning after probably a heavy night and come along and do a little coaching workshop. And seeing those mums and dads develop, it's almost as good as seeing players develop. Just watching them on a couple of weeks back, seeing them utilizing drills and techniques and styles on those 8 and 9, 10-year-olds, and that's it's good to watch, and it's good to see them grow.
Thanks for that, Josh. I'm going to jump in there a little bit and kind of rugby is not necessarily my area of expertise or whatever, but I just want to kind of vouch and talk a little bit about what you spoke about. I think volunteers has come up in a couple of podcasts before about the importance of having those types of people to really push a sport forward. And it's interesting that you talk about that from a rugby context. We've had that in other sports and stuff. So I just wanted to dig a little bit into something that you brought up earlier, linked to that point, which was girls in sport and girls in rugby. So you said, Richard, and back in your experiences in the UK, where actually there was girls and girls youth and mini rugby. Is that something that's developed in the UAE? Do you feel like the girls' side of rugby is emphasised enough? Is there girl coaches, role models for people to get involved in sport from a girl's point of view, or involved in coaching?
Yeah, and girls rugby, girls sport is massive out here in UAE and Dubai now. Myself, I'm hugely passionate about it. But from a growing point of view, it's like each year. I'm 10 years here now, and when I look back at year one, there wasn't a lot of age grade teams with girls. If there was the odd girl, they'd slip into the boys team and make up numbers there. But now you're getting legitimately across the board at most clubs girls teams that will go through, and they're competing as well. We've got a couple of really good success stories with girls going on to represent England, getting professional contracts with Saracens. So the girls that we're producing out of Dubai and out of the UAE are, they're talented in their own right and doing really well.
That's really positive to hear, because one of our kind of mantras here at the Sport and Direction podcast is exactly that. Like, we want to really inspire young girls listening to say, listen, you know, there is opportunities out there for you, and there is opportunities for you to develop and get involved in sport. And it's great to hear, Josh, that yourself and obviously others in the companies you're working for are really pushing that. I think we all agree that girls' sport should be a bit more of an emphasis at the minute, and it's wonderful to hear. I'm going to talk a little, just ask you about advice for someone listening to this in terms of how they would follow your footsteps. So obviously, as an ex-professional athlete, you have got an interest in rugby. I've done my level 1 Rugby Ready courses, and they're absolutely excellent, I thought, to be honest, genuinely, from a non-rugby player. I thought they were brilliant. But if someone was listening to this and they wanted to pursue a career in rugby coaching to a really good standard and a really high level, or potentially coming out to join you perhaps, what advice would you give them in terms of qualifications, people to listen to, people to follow, where they could use that as an inspiration to help them become a coach just like you?
I think number one, you've got to get yourself in with a good club. I don't have the answer on that one, on what's a good club, but I'd say 99% of the time, whoever your local rugby club is, the people there, they're all volunteers and they're all good people. Get yourself in down there, do your level 1s, and then bide a bit of time. And I think my main message is coach anything and anyone available, from under 4s all the way through to senior men, senior women. The more time you can have on that field, delivering sessions, communicating to different types of people, that's what makes you a good coach, having that ability to jump between all of them. And that was certainly one of my mantras, coming in. What as soon as I made that decision that this was the route I was going, I was coaching any team available to me. I'd turn up at every club in the UAE or in Dubai and see if they need an extra set of hands, and just get to any team available. Obviously, with that, you're developing those friendships and traits that you don't necessarily think of at top of your list as a coach, or to be a good coach. That's my big one, I'd say, is just being accessible to a lot of teams. And I wouldn't certainly stop. I wouldn't just rest on rugby. I was a big believer in getting across to other sports as well. I love my cricket. My wife plays hockey. I know nothing about hockey, but I wanted to learn. So I jumped across to a couple of hockey sessions, and you steal little snippets from sessions and seeing what coaches are doing there. It's amazing how different certain sporting cultures brings different types of coaching techniques. And I've certainly stolen little bits that I think are brilliant, and then I try and put them into the way I go about my business.
You've just given us a whole heap of information, and there's so much to unpack in the last 5 minutes that you've just said. If I could connect the dots between your own sort of service to the community with your coaches, and really sort of making an impact and helping those mums and dads becoming better coaches. For those sort of people that are maybe having a bit of self-doubt, trying to get into coaching, what is something that is like you commonly sort of say to reassure or like get them more engaged or more enthusiastic about what they're going to do?
Yeah, maybe you're never as bad as you think you are, and you're never as good as you think you are. And I think that's always something that I'll send across as a message to whether coaches or players. Don't be afraid to make those mistakes, especially for those, when I think of the people that you're on about, the volunteers that aren't necessarily got a lot of experience. I think a resounding fact that when I debrief a season with them or debrief sessions, they're so worried about not getting their messages across, or so worried about not getting, more often than not, they've got 5 elements in a session that they're like, yeah, we're doing all these, and they need to walk away with every single bit of them. And that's not realistic. And it's kind of just getting them to understand that all they need is one. They walk away with something, and you've got a good success story there.
Gosh, you keep giving us these gold nuggets, being able to have a willingness to learn. And I love how you said, I look at other sports and I'll take snippets, I'll take little bits and pieces from there. And then having this growth mindset to be able to go, I'm going to try something new. And I don't care if it fails. I'm going to try it, and I'm going to learn from that experience. I really like what you're doing there. When it comes to sort of growing, where do you hope that you could go next? Like, what's next on the path for Mr. Josh Ives? Where do you want to take yourself? And where's your journey going to lead?
The next thing that I want to do that is in my psyche, it's in my list of goals, and I'd like to achieve fairly soon, is I want to coach an international setup, whether that's senior men's or senior ladies. Asia's a great spot to get those international honours. There's a lot of growing teams, growing nations out here that are all after good coaches, and make your connections and hopefully build a good reputation, and you can get in with one of those setups. But that's my next goal. I want to be in an international coaching setup.
Josh, moving to the next level, okay, how are you going to spend your time and energy, like, to develop yourself or your skill sets to get to that next level?
I think to get to that next level, I think number one, you've got to believe that you're there. By no means thinking you're the finished article, because I'm not. I've got a lot more to learn. A lot more to learn. I'll surround myself with people that I consider far more knowledgeable than me, and I'll steal everything they've got to give. And they know I do that as well. I'm always on the hunt for new nuggets and new snippets, and in ways that can take that to the next level. Like I say, Apollo, the man that originally kind of lit the flame on this coaching journey, he's still out here. He's actually now the UE high performance director of the UE rugby team out here. He's my mentor now. He's someone that I can always sort of look back to and ask a couple of questions, look at a couple of routes, and he's fairly honest with his feedback, which is only good for me.
Wow. Hey, this is a great interview, but unfortunately we'll have to come towards the end. At the end of each sort of podcast interview, we try to ask a short, sharp question that may be a little bit left field, to see what your first initial reactions would be. My question is, what is a strange habit or skill that you have developed to get you to where you are now?
Honestly and quickly, not letting negatives affect me. I'll be honest, I make a lot of mistakes, and I don't dwell on it. I move on pretty quick, and I'd say that is probably my biggest asset, my biggest skill set as a coach, is just moving on.
Awesome, thanks for that, Josh. My question is, what is your mantra? What's one sentence or phrase that you'd say you'd live your life by?
Never give up.
Nice, short, sharp, simple. Love it.
I know it's simple, but it comes from an honest place with the family.
No, it's good. Like you said, it's very clear, and it's one that you can use in everything, can't you? So, Josh, let me just take this opportunity to say a huge thank you for you taking the time out to meet with us and chat with us. It's really interesting to share your story. Again, what's wonderful about your story is that you were on the cusp of being a professional. You've obviously still had an opportunity to play at a high level, but then you went off and you've already said yourself, you didn't really have any idea where to go because there wasn't enough guidance and support for you. You obviously spent some time finding yourself and then, lighting that fire inside of you and then sharing us your vision and your story with how you got there. So a huge thank you from us at the Sports Direction team for taking the time out to meet with us.
Thanks for having me.
Once again, Josh, thank you so much for sharing your story, telling us how you've sort of overcome your barriers and what sort of service that you're continually to give to your community and how you're making an impact through coaching. It's really inspirational. So I hope everyone listening is able to get something from Josh's story. And thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you very much, guys.